right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining the training, learning, and development community. Today we're talking about social media and L&D and what happens next. Things have been pretty interesting in the world of social networks. In particular, Twitter is going through a bunch of turmoil right now. Any of you are Twitter users, I'm sure you know about that. Personally, I'm not. I lurk a lot on Twitter. I don't usually post on Twitter, but I do use it to get news and information. I follow uh, some athletes and some comedians for entertainment purposes, and then also some L&D folks. But I don't get a ton of that type of content in my Twitter networks anymore. It used to be a lot busier before. So it's interesting. Just watching the whole thing kind of falling apart at this point with Elon Musk at the helm. And I haven't deactivated my account. I know folks that have because they feel like it's just a lost cause. But I'm sort of, I don't know. I think of that GIF of Michael Jackson eating popcorn every time I kind of think about Twitter at this point, and just watching sort of it fall apart. But I wanted to put this community discussion together for a few different reasons. It's something I've been thinking a lot about, and it's because nowadays building a community out, I do like watch very carefully how people are creating relationships and connecting to one another out in the world. And I've found just some interesting things about LinkedIn and Twitter and how social media and social networks are a part of that. I just keep my eye on it, and I've been on a part of social networks just early on. Uh, Luckily, like when I was at the e-learning guild, it was way back when. It was Brent Schlenker who had introduced everybody to this platform called Twitter. I think this was like 2006 or 2007, right when Twitter came out. And I was so hesitant and kind of skeptical about something like that platform being popular. But we were all in there just playing around with Twitter and watching it grow. And then all of a sudden it became a big part of the conferences that we produced. We would always have a group of Twitterers that would show up, and we would set aside space for them at uh, at the conferences, which was always interesting to see. And it kind of felt like if you weren't a part of that activity, then you weren't a part of you weren't one of the cool kids, I guess, is sort of what I'm wanting to say. So I didn't participate as much. It was mostly I felt like it was my job to kind of keep an eye on things, and I used to. But then I did sort of just start using Twitter on a regular basis, especially living in Northern California, and um, when we'd have weather challenges or the fires and all of that. The best source for information was Twitter. For me, I would just, in fact, I think that when the first major fires happened in Northern California, in my town in Santa Rosa, or next to my town in Santa Rosa, the first place I looked was Twitter, and that's where I got the details. And so it's hard to see something like that platform, um, at this point, interestingly enough, sort of burning to the ground. But we'll see. I have a hard time believing that it's going to go away. It'll probably evolve and change and become more of a product of Elon Musk's, and whether or not it's going to be worth paying attention to or being a part of at that point, um, we'll see. All right. So I also got a message from one of my friends who was asking me if I was going to be starting a Mastodon um, instance for TLDC, or it said maybe you should consider that. And I didn't consider that because I just don't think that I have enough folks in this community that participate in on Twitter and I don't have a big enough footprint in on Twitter to really feel like that's important. But it does intrigue me. I know that I years ago, I think I was still working at the guild. I built a Mastodon instance just to test it out. Just the geek part of me couldn't help but want to play around with it, and I thought it was interesting, but it wasn't something that applied at the time. So, um, yeah, and so this discussion is about that. It's also something else that I've been thinking about is LinkedIn and the importance of LinkedIn to this community and to L&D in general, how it's kind of on a significant part of what is happening within this community. I know that a lot of the people that participate regularly in our events and with producing our events are LinkedIn regulars, and and I think that's important. I mean, it was when I went to DevLearn a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas. I actually was able to sort of, I don't know, I guess divide my contacts that I met there into the type of LinkedIn users they were. I don't know why the thought had occurred to me, but I knew that there was a group that I was regularly that I was associating with, that I'm like, okay, here's this group of DevLearn attendees that are LinkedIn users. I could define them. And then there was a group of people that I knew that didn't use LinkedIn, and they seemed like they were people that I didn't really talk to that much at all. But of course, I love to see, and I was so glad that they were there. Maybe I saw them on other social networks like Facebook or Twitter, but I didn't see them regularly on LinkedIn, so they kind of went into a different category for me. And then there were a couple friends that I hadn't seen in a really long time, or one of them anyway, that who had a friend, and they weren't somebody that I saw on any social networks. So happy to see them, and I actually asked them about that. I'm like, I don't see you on posting any social media or on social networks, and they were both like, nah, nope, not a part of it, not even interested. I was like so fascinated by that. And it is interesting that in my head I sort of had grouped these people into these different categories. And it did make me reflect on how long I've been on social media. I mean, on social networks and posting social media, and it's incredible. There is a ton of content. I'm a part of a variety of social networks: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. What else? Um, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Oh yeah, Facebook. But I don't really post that much on. I don't post anything on Facebook. I'm on there mostly to keep an eye on my mom, and and also I'm in a rock band, and so we have to post flyers and stuff on that social network to get people to show up to our shows. So I'm still on there. Um, and with that, let me see. I'm gonna check to see. Looks like we have a few people that are active now in here. Let me take a look in my. Let's see, active. So Kim is in, Brian's in. I know I didn't have a bunch of people jump into this one. Thanks for being here. So I do have some polls. I don't know with the audience size how worthwhile these polls are going to be. I know it's like the Friday before Thanksgiving break, and my son is out on a turkey trot right now with his school, and so but I am really, really interested in talking about this stuff. Oh, it's okay, Kim. Thanks. We don't have a lot of active participants in this one, but I'd still love to hear what your thoughts are on everything that's happening. And if you didn't hear earlier, this is a big the thing with this is that I didn't realize when I'd come up with the idea for this community discussion, I didn't realize that Twitter was going to be in the in the situation that it's in right now. And it's so fascinating to kind of watch it and sort of see what is going on, because I logged in a little bit ago just to see, and last night the same thing. I was like, is it still there? Is Twitter still there? Is Twitter still there? And I'm not the only one thinking that way. There are other people in my feed that are posting the same sort of thing. And so let's see. So Kim, let me ask you. I have a few poll questions, and whether or not you don't have to participate in these polls, but this will help me at the very least. Let me test out how the polls work at on this Crowdcast version too. Let me know if you go into the poll area, if you can see that first poll that I have. And I'm going to go ahead and reveal the results and see. So I'm showing, okay, so Kim, you're part of Twitter. Let's see, and Instagram. That's interesting. And let me check here. Let's see. Brian, if you're in, feel free to participate in that poll. Would love to hear what you have to think. Oh, it's allowing you to only make one choice. Oh darn. Okay, and I don't actually have. Wait, let me see if I can add option, reveal results. Ah, you're right. And I don't have an option to do multiple answers. Okay, maybe just put that in chat and let's hear what you. Yeah, it only lets you choose one. I don't think the other version that was the case, so that's a good to know. Ah, okay. So yes, thanks, Kim. So Kim, you're part of Twitter, and Brian, is that you that's on Instagram? I'll just take a look in chat. Most of these I actually have a login for LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit. I used to have one on TikTok, but I kind of refused to go onto TikTok for a couple different reasons, but I'm not going to do TikTok. Definitely on YouTube. I have a login for WhatsApp and I look there occasionally. Snapchat, I haven't done in a long, long time, but I do have one. Pinterest, I have one, but I don't really do that regularly. I do it just to test it. Had one on Twitch, and I was doing Twitch for a little while, but stopped. And then Quora, that's not something I do anymore. But yeah, I definitely have logins for all of those. Okay, so let me take that poll down. And all right, so Kim and Brian, do you use or post on social media? Do you use or post on social media regularly? You got a yes. And I will say yes, I do as well. Let me know in chat. How often do you post on social media? Is that daily? Oh yeah, you're right, Kim. There is also Discord. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You're on TikTok as well. Okay. How often do you post on Instagram? Brian's got weekly. And Kim, I see you actually. I know you post regularly on Twitter because I do see your posts, which I love to see. Stories more than feed posts. Okay. Very interesting. Yes. Yeah, I get that. It's so yeah, it's I find that I don't know if it's because I'm a Gen Xer or what. I feel like, having started out with on Instagram with just posting in the feed, that's what I do versus stories because it's a lot easier for me. And I just don't want to I find stories still to kind of be challenging to do what I want. All right. So Kim, YouTube, is that YouTube and Twitter a few times a day, but just commenting on YT, just not posting on my own. Okay. Yeah, I'm also a regular YouTube media consumer versus I never post anything other than, likes and stuff, but I follow a lot of musicians on YouTube and get sports updates and things, but oh, and cooking, of course. I do. I follow a lot of cooks on YouTube. All right, let me get over to the next poll and let me find out what we got going here. So close that one. All right. So has using a social network helped your career or your professional development? Would love to hear that from you. I know that LinkedIn has become such an integral part of just the conversation that happens in this community. And I, to be honest, a lot of times it's overwhelming, and for me personally, and I can't follow it. I just don't. It was a lot easier for me to kind of follow things on Twitter, um, but on LinkedIn, as soon as I open up LinkedIn, it's just a huge, like, there's just everybody. It feels like everyone's just like looking for, fighting for attention. Not, I don't think that the intention is to be negative in any way, but the way that the platform functions for me creates some anxiety. Um, Okay, and Kim is saying, after I retire, I can have opinions safely. I might start writing on Medium, and that's why I'm out of the loop. I just can't do LinkedIn. Feel exactly the same way. LinkedIn versus Twitter. Yeah. And Brian, I'm not sure if you're a regular LinkedIn user, but uh, would love to hear your thoughts as well. Yeah, I do post on LinkedIn through for TLDC, like this event and other things. Like yesterday I posted about our Ideal 22 conference coming up, and I use it for as a promotional activity, but I rarely ever do the thing where I uh try to elicit some type of I don't know, like tell a story of some sort and gain some I don't know, like just to attract people to whoever I am. It's not something that I can do. And I can tell you that LinkedIn has not really helped me. Yeah, hasn't helped me with my professional development or my career. And so it's hard when I see that some folks say that using LinkedIn is an important piece of developing your career in L&D. Because I've seen a few people do that, and I just don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think you can definitely circumvent LinkedIn to find work, but there are, it can be a tool that you can use for that, but I don't think that it's a requirement. All right, Kim, let's see. Yeah. So your reasons for not using LinkedIn: not looking for a job, not hiring a manager, can't have or support be against, controversy because of my job. So not much on LinkedIn for you. Yeah. Um, oh yeah, back in 2009, it was helpful when you were laid off. Um, yeah, and that's um Kim is saying in the chat, I think people who monetize those academies are the ones who are benefiting. And I agree. I actually have I was chatting with someone at Devler and a friend, and she was saying that LinkedIn, she feels she doesn't participate there, and that there are actually some negative sort of can be a negative um negative. It could be bad for L&Ders, new L&Ders, transitioning teachers, just because it can set expectations that are unrealistic for new instructional designers. And she felt that the dialogue was unhealthy. And I thought that was fascinating to hear that, and because I've never thought about it at that level. But I agree. I think that if I were a new instructional designer, and you know people on LinkedIn say, okay, if you want to succeed in this space, then you need to follow this person, this person, this person, this person, and it can be overwhelming. And and also, a lot of times some of these folks have like sort of contradictory advice, and it could be really frustrating, especially I think if you're a teacher that's just coming into instructional design. And so I think that there are other things that you can focus on other than LinkedIn that can really benefit you, versus um I don't know, just focus on your portfolio, just do other things to be able to advance your professional development. Yeah, reading someone else's rants is not a good use of my time, and there's definitely a lot of that. And that's the thing with social media in general and social networks, is that once we were able to start just publishing content, you know, we all felt like we were all on the same level of expertise, because we were able to broadcast all of this stuff that we may or may not be qualified to be talking about. And I think that's what I find on LinkedIn in particular that is kind of frustrating, is that a lot of times there's like, there are people that are posting things that I'm like, what are they, what qualifies them to be able to say this, and what is their background? And then I'll look and I'm like, okay, so should I actually be listening to this person? But that's the thing with, with social networks, everybody's kind of an expert, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I agree, Kim. And that's sort of the thing with Twitter. It's like most of the time you're just getting just these blurbs from folks, and they're just trying to, you know, do their 244 characters of worth of dialogue. And it's easier to filter versus if you spend an entire, I don't know, minute reading what whoever else's post on LinkedIn. Those are that's what's different for me between those two. All right. And so how long have you been on social media? Do I even have a poll for that? I have that on my sheet here. Let me close this one. Just write it in the chat. And then also, how important are social networks to you? I just added that poll on there. You feel that being part of a social network is important, optional, unnecessary? Okay, it's important. And I'm just really curious about that, because there are things that I've read where social networking is the age of social networking is going away, and that we're moving more towards decentralized social networks, smaller groups. And I wonder if that's true. It's sort of interesting to kind of see the direction things are going now, with Facebook changing how the algorithm works, and advertisers pulling their money away from Meta, from Twitter, because it ended up becoming, most of the social networks became more of a money machine than it was actually focused on being a social network. When the advertising became the primary thing, that's when the innovation and the ideas and the how we managed to to publish ourselves on these things changed, because then it became all about just making money for the platform. um yeah, okay, so we got 100% on votes that it's important. We go ahead and close that one. And what do you think? Do you think that social networks are dying? I don't really go on Facebook anymore, or Meta, or Facebook. Instagram, I used to post pretty regularly, but now I think I've had maybe one post in the last month or so. And it's just because, you know, a lot of what I'm getting on Instagram are, I get see a lot more advertisements. I have to turn off that recommendation thing every time I get in there, because I'm getting recommended all this other stuff. And also, quite frankly, I'm not seeing a lot of my connections posting content, and the ones that are posting content are, I'm just not as interested in them, and so it's not that interesting for me to be in there. Okay, so do you think social media and social networks are dying? I've got that poll up. Let me know what you think, because I am going to kind of collect this stuff and share it with others. But I personally do. I think that, okay, no, that's good. I think that the way that social networks are going to be, oops, let me get into back in the chat here, that are going to evolve, is going to, probably less social media and maybe more connecting. And let's see. Oh, and let's see. Brian's asking about what are some examples of what a decentralized social media is. Well, one instance in particular is Mastodon. That is kind of a Twitter build that is out there where it's not the giant Twitter version where anybody can just sign up and join. It is an actual, like, each Mastodon instance has its own URL, and so it would be kind of a more of a closed system where you could be, rather than joining like multiple Twitters in the universe, you could have access to just, you could log into different Mastodons, and people are basically host their own Mastodon instance on their own servers, right? You could actually build a home server and host this different open source version of Twitter on your own on computer. But then that means that it would be kind of a decentralized, kind of closed network. It would only be, the only people participating would be the people that you would invite to it. So if I did one, for instance, for TLDC, then the only people that would participate in that one would be the folks that got the invite or know the URL and that are able to get in. And so it's considered decentralized. Yeah, and it would be, yeah, it's similar to Slack channels, and actually that is something that I've considered, is that, and one of the reasons why I'm not planning on doing a Mastodon instance is because we have the Slack group, and I think that functions well for us. I like the fact that there isn't as much opportunity to do LinkedIn style posts on there. I mean, I'm sure that you actually could, but more, it's just like a question and answer sort of situation with threaded comments, and I think that helps. It's more of like a like a messaging service versus an actual posting type of format. Okay, let me read some of the stuff on chat. Let's see. Kim's asking more, or saying, I'm more of a consumer on Insta and YouTube. The only posting I usually do is on Twitter. Yeah, and Kim mentions RSS. That is a way, and that was the early days of I would say of social media, was just using RSS to aggregate everything into one. Like if you were a blogger and somebody used like an RSS tool of some sort to be able to aggregate content from different authors, RSS was the tool of choice. Yeah, yeah. All right. And Kim, if says if Twitter does that, I'll definitely be on our Slack more. Thanks, Kim. All right, let me check to see. I might have some more polls here. I do. Let me ask some more questions. Oh, well, there it is. Are you interested in using a tool like Mastodon, a decentralized Twitter? And so I wanted to find out if that was something I should consider, but I don't think that I will actually do it. And then, wow, this conversation sort of naturally went the direction that that we've been talking. Does using something like Slack replace your need for social networking? I'm going to go ahead and make that poll live. All right. Yeah. Let me see here. What else? I think that this conversation about social networks and social media is going to be something that I'm going to regularly revisit, because as somebody who is trying to help support this community, I'd like to keep an eye on how everyone is able to connect and keep each other informed on what are the topics that are interesting for them within TLDC. And so it will be interesting to see, a week from now, what's going to happen to Twitter. I just don't feel like it can just go away. It's too important. I mean, society there's aspects of it that are so dependent on our social networks now, and the evolution of us being able to use social media and be part of social networks it wasn't easy, right? When we first started, you started, I know, like in the mid 2000s, or 2007, 2008, when you were getting into Twitter and Facebook and all that, it was like, this is weird. But now it's a regular part of what a lot of us do when we look at our screens. And but is it right? Is it something that we should be using and adjusting to? I mean, there's also been a lot of controversy about using social networks and um, as for influence. And so, yeah, it'll be different. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think that by the beginning of next year, after this holiday season in particular, there'll be some interesting stuff going on. Um, and with that, let me take a look in the chat area, and then I really, really appreciate you, Kim and Brian, for stopping by and taking a listen. Um, yeah, yeah, and I do think that to be honest with you, I feel like the stuff that I'm building, or with TLDC, with the monthly events and having conversations like this, I feel like that is a direction also when it comes to social media and social networks. I feel like gathering people monthly and having a topic focused event helps with the social aspect of it, and it's why I want to continue doing it. And that the weekly thing is also important. Um, but I love the fact that, at least in these situations, if we want to, we can have actual human faces to look at and see each other, especially in the larger events where we have the virtual tables and stuff we can go to. And so I'm going to continue to do that and keep that open as an option for anybody that wants to be part of the community, um, to hopefully, um, keep people engaged and help them along their career path as we keep moving through all of this. And with that, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Brian. And let's see. Next week, oh yeah, we missed. Ali was had like a personal emergency and couldn't do the last episode. Thanks, Brian. And so he's going to be on Tuesday, and so looking forward to that. And then, other than that, the only broadcast we have next week is next Tuesday, and then the week after we've got 5 days of Ideal 22. So impactful. I mean, Sudeep Mohandas, I've seen him in a webinar before, and it was just so good. Liza Weisner, Julie Kratz, who I've spoken to. This is a great lineup. I can't say enough about it. So week of 28th the week of November 28th is going to be fun, fantastic. All right, with that, I'm going to close this out. If I can figure out how to do it, stop recording and broadcast. Okay, there it is. Everybody have a good weekend. See you later. Thank you.